Hello everyone, so this is UPSC Mains 2021 GS paper 1, and in this part we'll discuss question number 11 to 15. In the previous part we have discussed 1 to 10. I wanted to make like all 11 to 20, but the thing is जल्दबाजी किस बात की भाई, आराम से करते हैं. So yes, what I'm trying to tell you here is, और क्या हम discuss करेंगे, whatever things we are going to discuss is, let's go one by one, let's go slowly. I don't know what I'm speaking right now, but let me focus. So yes, question number 11 to 15, 1 to 10, we have done in the previous part. So 11, question number 11, good questions these are. What I realized is when I was going through these questions again and again, so question number 1 to 10, the 10 markers, I felt it was slightly more tougher as compared to the 15 markers, which will be going from 11 to 20. So let's start, but it doesn't mean if it's easy right now, again, sitting in the room and looking at question again and again, not when you people are solving the paper in the examination hall in a time-bound manner. So that is a different scenario altogether. So first question, to what extent did the role of moderates prepare a base for wider freedom movement? Now again, here most of the people will just keep on talking about the role of moderates, how they aroused national consciousness, how they played a crucial role as economic critics, etc., etc. What you're not understanding is, if you don't give the other part, first of all, let's try to understand how we will answer this question. To what extent did the role of moderates? So you can talk about that the initial phase of the Congress from 1885 to 1905, it was said to be dominated by the so-called leaders, or by the leaders called moderates. It's not like they were the only ones. Even Tilakji was also there. He was an extremist, but it was dominated by the leaders who were known as moderates. And then you can give the name of these guys: Firoz Shah Mehta sir, then Tayabji sir, Naroji sir, Gopal Krishna Gokhale sir. It's so stupid. We keep on adding sir. I keep on adding sir, but it's good. So these guys were the ones who were dominating the Congress sessions. And that's why this phase is known as moderate phase. But again, don't get what people will start writing now. They will start writing about the moderate phase. Here, they're not talking about moderate phase. They're talking about these moderate guys. Yes, you have to write about moderate phase, but don't just stress on the word moderate phase. Talk about the moderate persons or people per se. So now, first of all, you will define this that yes, 1885 to 1905 majorly dominated by people called, or leaders called, moderates, and these were the moderates. Then the next part is not the role of the moderates. The next part, what you will or what you should, although there's no, this is not a prelims and objective question, you can have multiple ways of writing the answer. I'm just giving you my view. So what you can talk about is, you can just give one heading: criticism of moderates. Then you can, once you have written the criticism of moderates, why moderates were criticized, how they were criticized, then you can talk about the role in a much better manner, because that will enhance your answer in a much better manner. You will understand it. Let me explain it. First of all, what were the criticism of moderates by different leaders, even the extremists? First criticism was they were too pacifist. Too pacifist means they're like, my baap ye kar do, wo kar do. According to extremists, these moderates were not like, they were like, Britishers were not knowing our concerns. If we tell them our concerns, they will help us. So they were too pacifist to be effective. That was one of their criticism. Too pacifist. Second criticism was, we all know Lala Lajpat Roy sir. He wrote a book called Young India. There are so many Young India. There's also a journal, Young India. Gandhiji is associated with it. There's New India also. So have a look at all those things. What is the difference between Young India journal, book, and New India and all those? So Lala Lajpat Roy sir, he wrote a book called Young India in 1916. Please listen to it very carefully. Most of the people will not write this. So in this Young India book, which he wrote in 1916, he gave the theory of safety wall. You may have heard the safety wall theory. Na? So according to this theory, what Lala Lajpat Roy sir was saying, that these Congress in its initial moderate phase, it was used as a safety valve or vent to release anti-British discontent, thereby preventing future revolt. Hope you understand this. So in a way, this is also criticism of moderates. It's not like moderates were furthering the nationalist consciousness, etc. According to Lala Lajpat Roy sir, they were being used by the Britishers to release anti-British discontent. The word here is to release anti-British discontent, right, to prevent any future revolt like the one which happened in 1857. So you can talk about, this was one criticism according to Lala Lajpat Roy sir. Then third criticism of this moderate leaders in their phase was that Congress under moderates was a annual 3-day show. It was said that these guys, they were very rich people, and they used to come for 3 days. They used to have discussions, etc. So it was just an annual 3-day show. Congress under moderates was just an annual 3-day show. So this is some criticism. Now you will talk about that. No, these criticisms are exaggerated because moderates played a crucial role in preparing the base for wider freedom movement. Now talk about the role of moderates. Now give another heading, because anyway, this is a 15 marker, man. You have to fill 3 pages, 4 pages. So you need to, if you just write role of moderates, you will be done in 1.5 page. You have to expand the answer. And this is a good way. First, criticize them, tell them what other people were saying, and then write the role of moderates. This will enhance the answer. Or you can do the other way also. You can write the role of moderate first, and then you can also write the criticism part. This covers both the dimension, and this will give you good marks. So here in role of like moderates in preparing base for wider freedom movement, you can talk about all the points. Like they aroused what? They aroused national consciousness. National consciousness. How many of you have watched Jojo Rabbit? Awesome movie, dude. Do watch it if time permits later on after the mains is over. So arouse national consciousness. This is one first role, their role. Then around 1/3 founding fathers. You do know this moderate leaders, they were pioneer in forming Congress in 1885. So around 1/3 founding fathers, they were journalists. Around 1/3 founding fathers, most of whom were moderates, they were journalists. So you do understand, if they are journalists, what they will do. So they were like Surendra Banerjee, sir. He also joined Congress later on. He used he ran a journal called Bengali. So this vernacular press like Bengali, it played a crucial role in providing political education to masses. So this is one of the roles. Then economic critique, we all know, we will write economic critique. Dadabhai Naroji sir, Ramesh Chand Dutt sir, they played a crucial role in exposing the drain theory, or in putting the drain theory. And you may feel like, so there was no theoretical, and there are no practical thing which happened because of this. No, there were certain things which happened. Once this drain theory came into picture, Britishers had to appoint a commission, which was known as Welby Commission. So this Welby Commission was appointed in 1895 to check expenses. This can even come in prelims. That Welby Commission is talking about what? So Welby Commission was appointed. So this is one of the achievements of the moderates, how they are preparing a base for the wider freedom movement. Do talk about these points. I don't think many of you would have done that. So make a note of it. Then reform in civil services. They talked about reform in civil services and legislative council. And some of these reforms were happening. So these were some of the good things which they were doing and preparing the base for the wider freedom movement. Keep on reiterating this sentence, which is there in the question. That way, it will give good feeling to the examiner that you are not deviating from the topic, you're sticking to the topic. So all these points you will talk about, and then you will conclude that thereby, via these points, we can say that they created a nationalistic base, which was used by leaders like Gandhiji for furthering cause of India's independence. So this is it. If you do this, if you write all these points, I think you will get good marks. So I have told you whatever I knew about this particular question, and these kind of questions have been earlier asked in history optional. I have history optional, so I know it. So it's a repeated question in history optional. You don't have to write like an optional guy, but these points you can easily include. We have not gone too deep. So that's it. Let's move on to the next topic. Bring out the constructive programs of Mahatma Gandhi during non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. Constructive programs. Understand one thing. If you want to understand constructive programs, you have to understand the methodology of Gandhiji, how he worked. His philosophy, you may have read it in Bipin Chandra and other books, that there were two things which he followed: struggle to struggle, or pressure, compromise, pressure. Pressure, compromise, pressure. So what is struggle to struggle? Struggle means there will be a certain period when we'll be waging the movements, but any movement or any struggle can't go forever. Any struggle or any movement can't go forever. You need a period of lull, right? Can't go forever. Let's take the example of you people. You're right now, it's mains. So you're studying for 12 hours, 10 hours. You cannot do it continuously. You will burn out. You like, सारी किताबें इधर उधर फेंक दूं. You will have that kind of a feeling, and that is but obvious. So similarly, any movement cannot go on forever. So there will be a struggle period. Then you have to take a brief pause, and then you will start the struggle again. So this constructive programs, they used to fill that particular void. They used to fill the void between different phases of a movement, like non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. That was one of the aims of the constructive programs. They kept the morals of the Congress workers high. They promoted thus. Remember one thing. This, I think, many of you would not have written Sarvodaya. It promoted the concept of Gandhiji's Sarvodaya. What is Sarvodaya? Gandhiji's this philosophy is progress for all. So here you have talked about the importance. Now you have to tell what were the different constructive programs. So they filled political void, or they filled void, they kept morals high, they promoted Sarvodaya. Now, the thing is, what are the constructive programs? So promotion of khadi industry, promotion of village industry, all these, we have heard about it. We know this. Khadi, village industry, then Satyagraha Sabha. Remember Rowlatt Satyagraha Sabha, all these things were organized. Then Hindu-Muslim unity promotion, abolition of a removal of untouchability, because he started even Harijan newspaper. Gandhiji, although he was not in favor of abolishing caste system, but he very disliked this whole concept of untouchability. He was like, it's a scourge to the Hinduism or to the Hindu fraternity. This should not exist. Harijan newspaper, so many things he did. So all these are part of constructive programs: promotion of khadi industry, promotion of village industry, promotion of Hindu-Muslim unity, removal of untouchability. Then Satyagraha Sabha, you can talk about all these things under the constructive programs, and then also you can write the constructive programs, what they are, and then you can write the motives. What were the motives of the constructive programs? To fill the void, to keep the morals high, to fulfill the philosophy of Sarvodaya. Do talk about Sarvodaya, sir and ma'am. Most of the people will not talk about Sarvodaya. So these points, and that's enough. I think you can write a good answer here. And then you can write a conclusion here that CP played a crucial role in expanding the base of national movement by including people from different strata. So you're talking about Hindu-Muslim unity, you're talking about the people from lower strata, SC, ST category. So you're including people from different backgrounds. So widen the base of the national movement. And in that, constructive programs had a major role to play. Next question. There arose a serious challenge to the democratic state system between the two world wars. Now, understand one thing. What most of the people would have written here is would have written serious challenges. The question is not talking about serious challenges. It is talking about a serious challenge. So you have to talk about the biggest serious challenge which happened between the two world wars. As a history optional guy, I can tell you so many points, but I have to confine myself here. And the biggest serious challenge here is totalitarianism. Totalitarianism. There were other challenges also. Communist versus capitalist, greatest economic depression, so many things. But the serious or the most important or most serious challenge to the democratic state system was totalitarianism. So, and then you can talk about that there were different facets of totalitarianism. What are different facets of totalitarianism? One facet is this. What is this? Who are these kids? Awesome movie, man. I have not seen a better movie than this, Jojo Rabbit. And this is an Oscar-nominated movie. Generally, what happens when you have these Oscar-nominated movies, they are very dull. But this is not dull. This is super, like, there's so much comedy, there's so much tragedy. It's a masterpiece, actually. So the story is about the child army of Hitler. So Hitler had a child army, and he was one of the devotee of Hitler. It's comedy, and will tell you so many things. And this is the portrayal of Hitler. If you see this guy, and if you see real Hitler, they look so similar, man. And then, since he is a follower of Hitler, obviously he will not allow any Jewish person to live in his house. But his mother was keeping a Jewish hostage. Means not hostage. This girl was there. She was saving her. And this boy knew about it and he loved her. So awesome, yeah, awesome. Please watch it. It will help you in understanding history also. So what we're trying to talk about, the greatest challenge between the two world wars, two democratic system. Do keep a tab on the words which are there. To democratic state system. So the answer here is totalitarianism. Then you can talk about that there were different types of totalitarianism. Fascism and Nazism. They were not same. There were some common features, but they were not entirely same. I will show you something. And then you can also talk about some of the features of the totalitarianism where Lebensraum, like this Hitler, he wanted a Lebensraum, living space for the German guy, pure German race, anti-Semitism. So these were some of the features. Remember, we are talking about a serious challenge. And the biggest serious challenge to democratic state system is totalitarianism. And in totalitarianism, we are dividing it further into different parts. So we are only talking about a serious challenge, right? Then you can talk about this pure German state, race, anti-Semitism. We all have, or you may have heard about a guy now named George Orwell. So what George Orwell has, he wrote an essay. It was named What is Fascism? I'm just giving you some information. You don't need to write it. He wrote an essay which is known as What is Fascism? And in that, he gave a statement like peace is absurd and we do not believe in it. So that was stated in the context of fascism, right? Peace is absurd and we do not believe in it. Let me show you something. Just a second. And so you can talk about that. What were the features of fascism? What were the features of Nazism? You can talk about this. So let me just a second. These are handwritten notes, so I don't know how much you will be able to see it. See, I talked about this particular point. Peace is absurd and we do not believe in it. So stated in the context of fascism. George Orwell described in his essay, What is Fascism? Now, when we're talking about the biggest serious challenge, that is totalitarianism, and two different types of totalitarianism were Nazism and fascism. And Hitler and Stalin, they were the two ones who were following these Nazism and fascism respectively. So you can talk about the similarities. They were authoritarian, repression of political opposition, personality cult, and all these, but there were differences also. Single party fascist dictatorship was there in Hitler. Stalin was communist. Hitler was appointed as chancellor, but Stalin was leading by a reign of terror. Hitler saw women as subservient. Stalin saw women as equal. All these points you can add. So, and then in the end portion, you can talk about what? You can talk about that other challenges apart from totalitarianism to the democratic state system was capitalism versus communism, great economic depression, etc., etc. So that will complete your answer. So hopefully this made some sense here, this particular answer, what we discussed here. Let's move on to the next question. Briefly mention the alignment of major mountain ranges of the world. So, man, I am very poor when it comes to drawing world map, but if possible, do draw a world map in this question. Do draw a world map and try to show all the what? All the major mountain ranges. So Himalayas, Rockies, Andes, talk about it. Then Alps, Atlas, Alps, talk about them. But if you see the question again, if you see the question minutely again, so what they're talking about? They're talking about alignment of major mountain ranges and their impact on local weather conditions. So many people, many students were asking me, sir, we have just written the impact together. We have not separated Himalayas and written its impact, then Rockies and Andes. You can do that, but it's good if you have separated it. Let's say you have talked about the impact of Himalayas separately and talked about the impact of Rockies separately, Andes separately. Like Himalayas, it protects us from Siberian winds. You can talk about Siberian winds, how it protects us from Siberian winds. Then you can talk about how it allows the monsoon winds to shed most of the moisture in Indian subcontinent only. Then it is a source of perennial rivers. All these things you can talk about. Himalayas. Rockies, local Chinook winds. It originates from Rockies, Chinook winds, adiabatic wind. Do read about adiabatic wind if you have not. Chinook winds. Then you can talk about how westerlies, which blow from west to east, this acts as a like barrier. Most of the rainfall is happening on the western side. And this also you can talk about, it is a acting as a rain shadow for Atacama Desert. All these things you can talk about separately. And then you can say that it has major impact, multifarious impact, multidimensional impacts, these mountain ranges. So if you divide it, if you make the map, you'll be able to fill pages, you will be able to write answers. I think you can add more points if you have. So these are the things which you have to do. Do make map. In geography, make maps. It helps a lot in geography, especially if you're making maps. Let's see other question. So question number 15, and I will make 16 to 20 in the next part. How do the melting of Arctic ice and the glaciers of Antarctic differently, very tough question, differently affect the weather patterns and human activities on Earth? So here you have to talk about the difference between melting of Arctic ice and glaciers of Antarctic. Some are similar things, like there will be a rise in sea level, there will be submergence of islands, but the impact of Antarctic melting of glaciers is somewhat lesser. Human, like anthropogenic impact we are talking about, somewhat lesser means we are impacted somewhat to a lesser extent by the melting of glaciers of Antarctic than by the melting of the glaciers of Arctic. So what is happening here? One thing which you have to understand, the points you will talk about, you can make different two charts, one for Arctic, one for Antarctic. In Arctic, you have more points to write. So write first Arctic. So one thing which most of the people will not write. Common points will be rise in sea level, submergence of islands. Then let's talk about some points which most of the people will not write. Weakening of polar jet stream. Polar jet stream. Now, what is polar jet stream? It is a type of westerlies in the upper troposphere, moving from west to east at a very high speed. Now, here, if I have to teach you all this, I have to teach you Rossby waves and all those things. What you have to understand is, let's try to understand it with a diagram. So what happens is these winds, these polar jet stream, they are there in the North Pole, let's say here in the Arctics. But generally what happens when there is melting of ice and all those things, so they deviate. This is called meandering. This is called Rossby waves. So deviate. So what is happening when they're deviating? The colder air is coming downwards. And because of this movement, the warmer air is going upwards. So this creates trough, crest and trough. Because of this, what happens? Even certain areas, let's say if you see this figure, earlier there are certain portions here which have warm air. But because of the development of the troughs, this will later on have cold airs. So because of this, only in certain American portion, you're seeing Arctic air is going down, and in certain portion of America where they used to have warmer temperature, they're having this. So these kind of events will intensify via the melting of Arctic glaciers. Then there's one very good point actually, which I was discussing with other people, that there is one thing, if there is melting of Arctic ice, now it will open Northern Sea route. There's one route which is known as Northern Sea route, and which is generally used by Russia and Japan, Northern Sea route. So more melting of this is a good point. Most of the points which you are seeing are negative points. This is a positive point. So if there is more melting of Arctic ice, it will open Northern Sea route. This will facilitate Russia a lot, and it will also divert some of the trade, which is right now happening in Indian Pacific Ocean, that will be diverted to Northern Sea route. So this is one of the positive impact. Then you can talk about the Antarctic. What will be the impact of melting of glaciers, like Larsen sea ice shelf glaciers is melting, and that's why this is in news. So what will be the impact? There's lesser impact on humans, but it will raise sea level. It will speed up the process of global warming. Now, the question here is how it will speed up the process of global warming. Understand one thing, ice. When you're melting ice has highest albedo. Albedo is what? Reflectivity. So if you have more ice, you have more reflectivity, more heat you're reflecting. And if you're reflecting more heat, you have lesser temperature. But if there is lesser and lesser ice, there will be lesser and lesser albedo, lesser and lesser reflectivity, more absorptivity. So if there is more absorption, temperature will increase. So if you have lesser ice, it will also facilitate the process of global warming, increase the process of global warming, hasten the process of global warming. So all these things you have to discuss, all these points you have to talk about. Fine, man. So let's keep until here only. In the next part, we'll discuss 16 to 20, and then I will try to discuss the other papers. Take care, be blessed. Bye-bye.